did you diagnose your child?
Okay, so I first noticed my oldest daughter. I used to run an in-home daycare, and all the other kids would act differently than my oldest, and it could have been that I was the mom and all the other kids were not my children. However, my child first acted different than the other kids I used to care for, and I was not used to a child like completely not listening, having a total meltdown, and just it seemed like they were wound up as like, you know, the Energizer Bunny. They kept going and going and going, and I knew something was wrong. I first went to my doctor and I said, they're not the same as the other kids I watch. And so she's like, well, they're too young for me to do anything. We'll just like think about it and just watch and see what happens. And then knowing this, like, I went to school to be a elementary school teacher, and I knew that, yeah, I just, you know, mother's intuition that something's not quite right.
What do you think caused your child to have ADHD?
I think what caused I actually have 3 kids. All 3 kids have ADHD, and I honestly think that I was always myself in trouble as a child. My parents would get so irritated with me, and I always seemed to be the one in trouble. And I tried really hard to do well in school. I tried really hard to get good grades, get good grades and not get in trouble. And for some reason, I always found myself in trouble. So once my oldest daughter was diagnosed with ADHD and they were telling me the symptoms, and I was like, oh, really? Oh, wow. Okay, so I need to talk to my mom and ask her some questions about my early childhood. And I think that a lot of the reasons why my kids have ADHD is because I have ADHD. I was diagnosed after my oldest daughter was diagnosed in kindergarten.
Does it run in the family?
Yeah, obviously. I do think it runs in the family. I did not smoke. I did not drink. And I took prenatal vitamins while I was trying to get pregnant with all 3 of my kids. None of them were unplanned. They were all planned pregnancies. So like, I had never had a drop of alcohol. I had never smoked a cigarette, and all 3 kids ended up with ADHD. So yeah, like, I think it does run in my family. And I actually notice some of the symptoms from that my parents have, that I definitely know that, like, one of my parents constantly interrupts me. My kids constantly interrupt me when I'm speaking. So yeah.
Do they take medication?
But yes, all 4 of us, all 3 of my kids, along with myself, all take an amphetamine, which is like Ritalin or a different type, like just different like brands of ADHD meds. They're all stimulants, and they absolutely help all 4 of us like be able to concentrate. However, if you would see us without meds, maybe less me, but the other 3, yeah, they're definitely interesting to be around.
Do you think your kids will be able to live a normal life?
I do think my kids can lead a normal life. I think they may have to work harder in certain areas, and then at the same time in other areas it could be easier, because I definitely notice all 3 of my kids are very creative, And if they find an occupation that is more creative, they could definitely thrive in that environment, along with an environment that never changes, but that's boring. So I think that they would be, I think that they could be just fine having ADHD. I mean, I wasn't diagnosed until I was 36 or 37. So yeah.
Do you think your kids will have children?
I actually think that all three of my kids will have children, especially since I ran an in-home daycare. Both my husband and I went to school to be, I went to school to be an elementary school teacher. I ran an in-home daycare. And my husband went to school to be a high school math teacher. So yes, I absolutely think that my kids really like kids whenever I've done daycare with them. So they've always loved playing with the kids. And I've even tried to find them some nanny jobs. And yeah, they do really well.
Do you think they'll need constant care?
No, I do not think my kids will need constant care. I mean, I do think that they will need a caring person, like let it be a spouse or a really good friend, to like help guide them just to different they're sometimes they're afraid to try new things, and if somebody else is like, yeah, look at what I did, I think that would give them the encouragement to try something new. But no, I think that they can thrive on their own, and I'm excited to see what different things they try and what things they excel at, because I definitely notice a lot of really, really amazing qualities all three of them have and possibilities for their future.
What type of schooling do your children have or need, and do they have an IEP?
My kids went to two different types of schools. They first started in a Christian private school, and when I started noticing that they were struggling in school, both with behavior and academically, I wanted them to succeed in school. So I wrote a letter to the school and asked them to do an IEP evaluation, and that they would have the Rochester Public School will come in and evaluate them to see if they would qualify for an IEP. Since all three kids that I have were diagnosed with ADHD, they actually, as well as myself, so if I sound kind of funny, I struggle with keeping my attention to what I was trying to say. So my kids went to the private school, and I had my two girls evaluated, and actually they both qualified for an IEP. And when they went at the private school, their needs were not being met. They were not following their IEP plan, along with they just weren't succeeding there. They were really struggling. They had to do a lot of memorization, and I thought that they would actually do a lot better in public, which they have been doing really, really well. So I would say that the kids do need extra help, maybe like helping them or teaching them how to like stay organized. Like I really struggle with organization. I like things a certain way, and it's hard to keep it that way. But yeah, they really have done really well. And my son actually has a 504. I was his preschool teacher, and I could see that he couldn't really play like all the other kids. He would jump from toy to toy to toy, and I actually had him evaluated for an IEP or a 504, and actually he didn't qualify at that time. He ended up just going on some ADHD meds, which really did help. But when we started doing foster care for some friends, that's when I really realized that like he was really struggling emotionally and behaviorally. So we ended up having him reevaluated for a 504, and since then like some of the issues have resolved with the foster kids. So my son is doing really well, has no behavior issues, does not have no longer has an active 504 plan, and is doing really well in school. And actually both my daughters are doing really well in school. So yeah, even though they have an IEP, they can still succeed and do well, given that they have the right tools to do it, such as the IEP and maybe some extra help from teachers.
Parenting tips?
So my best parenting tips for, it doesn't even have to be for your child with ADHD, but you are the parent, and I think it's, if you trust your gut, if you know something's not right, no matter what, usually you are correct. And when my first daughter, when I went to take her to the doctor that first time and say something's not quite right, I was right. But I think trust your gut, and then patience. If you have a spouse, if it's easy to get really irritated and annoyed with your hyperactive and like kind of crazy kid, which is, I think every parent gets annoyed or irritated with their kids. Take some deep breaths, remove yourself from the situation. Like if you can have a grandparent watch them for a little while, make sure you take care of you so that you can be the best parent. And I've also learned that you don't have to win every battle, but sometimes it's okay to let your kids win or compromise. I know that, like, with my kids being super impulsive, and there are times where I've been impulsive, just learning from past mistakes. And I've taken some different parenting classes. One of them was Love and Logic. And if your kid wants to go to school without a coat on and it's cold, and you tell them, don't forget your coat, because maybe you have to go to work and they have to get on the bus, they forget it, then unfortunately next time they'll be cold that day, and next time they won't forget it. So just sometimes just natural consequences. So I'm trying to think if there's any other parenting tips. Just give your kids grace. Try not to compare them to other kids, because everybody is different, and all of our kids are special in their very own way. So